Okay, well, first of all, thank you all for sticking around. We're going to back clean up here, and we're going to come strong, try and make it worth it for you for staying. So, as he mentioned, I kind of have an inside-outside perspective here. But what we're going to be talking about is a critical foundational element that we should all be thinking about when it comes to designing and senior living. Now, this talk is, I'm warning you, you're not going to leave here with one recipe as to how to perfectly design the greatest senior living ever. The talk is very much conceptual. We're going to talk about kind of the basic elements and hope to be provocative. Now, if you look at the slide here, we have Audrey Hepburn and George Cukor. They're on the set of My Fair Lady. So I am from the motion picture industry, so I'll throw some film elements in throughout the talk. But so the best part is that I'll talk about my conceptual framework about designing for senior living. But then we get to the really fun part, which you're all waiting for, is my conversation with Barbara Beskind. Something I've really been looking forward to, and I think that's going to be a real treat for all of us. So in that picture, I don't know if I'm Audrey or if I'm George, but maybe Barbara will help me figure that one out. But either way, I'm excited to be either of those. So now, as a geriatrician who's the Chief Innovation Officer for the Motion Picture and Television Fund, I spend a lot of time talking about what the heck I do and who the heck I am. So first of all, the Motion Picture and Television Fund. We're a very unusual organization. We're a 95-year-old nonprofit that exists solely to help people who work in the television and film industry. So all of the people behind the camera, in front of the camera, around the camera, we provide services, support, and assistance to that community. One of the crown jewels, we do a lot of things. We actually have a slide that we share a lot as we go around, say, I didn't know you did that. Because we do everything. We do child care, financial assistance, social service, elder connection, kind of everything. But one of our crown jewels is we have a residential campus in Woodland Hills where about 250 industry members live across a continuum of care. And this was all the vision of some incredible pioneers of the film industry, as you see pictured here, Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, and Doug Fairbanks. So they just had this sort of simple idea that the people who were kind of doing well in Hollywood should look out for all the other people, so that if a set painter broke his arm, there would be a fund there available to help support. And it's amazing how this organization has evolved through the years and the new directions that we're exploring. So again, now as a geriatrician, I'm definitely a rare bird. We were lucky that we had another geriatrician present here, but as you probably know, there are only about 7,000 of us in the entire United States. And that just boggles the mind. It doesn't make any sense when we know 10,000 people are turning 65 every day. Now, what do I do as the Chief Innovation Officer is something I spend a lot of time explaining. But, basically, the main component of my work as the Chief Innovation Officer is thinking about our population health strategy. And this population health strategy is very much focused on the non-clinical factors. These numbers vary depending on which report, but we know that when it comes to population health, particularly when you consider the abundance of chronic disease, that really clinical care only accounts for a small impact. Genes and biology, another small impact. Certainly there's a lot of investment in trying to impact that, but I know we're not trying to do any genetic engineering at the Motion Picture and Television Fund. But what we are focused on is where we can get a real return on our investment if we focus on health behaviors, social and economic factors, and things we can modify in the physical environment. So again, now as a physician who's come into this role, this kind of puts me again in that inside-outside. I'm sort of, my real estate is healthcare adjacent as we're trying to think through these social determinants of health. Now, many of the presenters here have referred to the silver tsunami, right? At any of these meetings, people are talking about the silver tsunami. Well, I mean, I think we need to stop that. We should keep talking about it, but we need to change the way we talk about it, right? This is not some awful doomsday scenario that we all have to brace for, particularly the people I hang out with. I know they're paddling out and they're trying to think how they can surf this great age wave. You know, this is an elder boom. This is opportunity. Now, of course, the people I hang out with, all these kind of product designers and startups, they're thinking how they can put a sensor in everything, you know, so that we can make aging go better. But for me, if you think about this picture and think about if we were designing for an older person, I would say the fact that this older person is out there surfing that wave as opposed to the particular angle and speed with which they're surfing it would be the real accomplishment. And I'll come back to that. Now, a century is a long time. Maybe not for Barbara. Maybe she could tell us how long a century is. But if you think about it, how quickly this is changing and how quickly we're sort of discovering and unfolding what the new old age is. So I have a clip here, Sunset, the movie poster for Sunset Boulevard. Great film. Hopefully you've all seen it, Billy Wilder. So Gloria Swanson plays Norma Desmond. She's an aging, silent film star who has this fantasy that she's going to have a big comeback. She's become obviated, irrelevant in the world of the talkies. It's interesting because there's a lot of parallel with the history of our organization in that industry disruption. But the reason I point this out is that how old do you think Gloria Swanson was when she played this role? The old, aging starlet who was washed up, irrelevant, in her Grey Gardens mansion, just left for dead, on death's door. How old? She was 50 years old, okay? So she actually lived a very long life, but when this film was made in 1950, her life expectancy was 10 years shorter than what it would be of a woman today. Now, of course, it's Hollywood, so the math gets all thrown off. Everybody lies about their age, and it doesn't make any sense. But I raised the point to think about how new this new longevity is and how we can think about how we spend this longevity dividend and reinvent what it is to be old. Now, this is something we think a lot about at Motion Picture Television Fund. So we think a lot about how can we, across the lifespan, set the scene for living well. And of course, it involves getting people moving. Of course, it involves encouraging people to eat well and change their behaviors, the basic pillars of wellness, okay? But when you think about it, if you look at our mission, supporting each other in living well and aging well with dignity and purpose, and in helping each other in times of need. That's the real unique opportunity, is to focus on the living with dignity and purpose and creating a community that supports each other. So in addition to the yoga classes and the things that you'll see on every senior living website, you'll notice we have volunteer right at the top. And we have people who are volunteering. I have a gentleman who's in a wheelchair on respiratory support, and he comes around volunteering on our campus helping other people. I think mainly just to make me feel like a crappy person when I look at what a great guy he is and think about what I'm doing every day. But so in addition to the basic components of wellness, we have to expand into this special sauce of what gives life meaning and what gives life purpose. So we actually did that. We have these summits with people who work in the entertainment industry. And we had a summit, the What Matters Most Summit. And this was really thinking about living life not as some challenge, but as something to cherish. And we had great people a guy like Sam Polk, who left Wall Street behind and started a nonprofit that's helping people live healthier lives. Doc Rivers, the coach for the LA Clippers, I won't mention how they did this year, but the Doc Rivers, NBA player, talking about really needing to sort of understand losing everything to understand what matters to you. So they all spoke about what matters most to them. And it was a moving day, and we were inspired. They had great stories. It was provocative, a lot of conversation. But we had to shine the mirror. We had to look back at us and think, okay, well, what are we doing with regard to this on our campus, in our community? So we kind of have a do, ask, do, tell policy at MPTF. So we started asking people. We deployed a well-being index, and we asked people about their own sense of well-being, and we asked them where they felt they stand on this ladder and where they feel they will stand 5 years from now. We asked them lots of questions about this sense of purpose. We just flat out asked, how strongly do you agree with this statement? I lead a purposeful and meaningful life. Now, when you ask people that, it's an amazing opportunity because, number one, it's a great triage tool because if you find somebody who's really has a low sense of purpose, you start to notice, oh, I didn't notice the curtains are drawn. I didn't notice that this person never gets out and connects with other people. But now that I asked, I uncovered it, I'm looking for it, I can actually do something about it. Then you can look globally at a population level and say, how are we doing overall? By being a part of our community, are you really living a more purposeful and meaningful life? And it's something we can track over time. So it's interesting that I'm talking about that in terms of the people we serve. What's so exciting for our industry here is that people are really starting to think about this holistically. I mean, this is really, when you think about the culture of the workforce of your senior living organizations, probably the most exciting opportunity and essential component is a sense of purpose in your workforce. Now, there's a guy, that slide was from Jim Finkelstein at FutureSense, and they're doing amazing work thinking about this, again, incorporating it into the whole kind of vision of your human capital and the culture of your organization. Now, there's another guy, Arthur Woods at Imperative. It's a very interesting story. So this is a guy who, I'd say he's a millennial. He worked at YouTube, Google, as a Google employee, had every potential benefit you could possibly have. I mean, everything from, the best healthcare to foosball whenever you want it, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to work at Google? And he found, however, that he felt empty. He did not like his job. He did not find any satisfaction in what he was doing. He found that there were two things. Number one, with all the great cat videos, he didn't really go home and felt like he made a difference in the world, although I love those cat videos. He also felt like he was there, but he didn't have autonomy and creative control, right? But now he's looking to senior living. He gets it, that this is what we have in spades. We have the opportunity to actually, people can come to work and actually have a sense of purpose in what they do. They can come and actually do something where they're enabling people and caring for people and making a difference in people's lives. This is something millennials want. And by the way, he started to measure sense of purpose in workforce, and employees who have a strong sense of purpose do better on every possible HR metric you could think of. They stick around longer, they're more productive, they're more engaged, everything you can think of. So again, they're looking to us. He's been to the mountaintop. He's been at Google, the greatest place on earth, and then all these great videos and all this fun stuff. And he's looking at senior living as, wow, that's where it's at. That's a little different. I don't think that's the kind of senior living we're used to hearing of in terms of what it's like to have a job in this industry. But that's where it's going. That's our opportunity. So again, modern times, we should be purpose factories. That's what senior living should be. From every point along the chain. For the people working there, it's about having a sense of purpose, that they're actually contributing to something that's making people's lives better. And for the people living there, that they actually are deriving some value in there, that they're actually going in a new direction in life, that they're taking on new challenges, that they're finding meaning. But unfortunately, it seems that much of it is just developing more cogs in the machine, if you think of the imagery of Charlie Chaplin in modern times. And there are great designers working on this stuff. I mean, I love it. I've worked with Stuart Carton at Carton Design. I mean, and a lot of young people, they're doing really interesting stuff, thinking about out-of-the-box solutions at the overlap of medical and consumer. And we did a panel at South by Southwest where we talked about the home as the health hub of the future. And it was an exciting opportunity, and to think of companies like DuPont taking on these challenges, taking on the challenges related to aging. That's exciting. We are in a very exciting time. The problem is people are still thinking about the immediate propositions around safety, around healthcare savings. I mean, that's great stuff. We need to prevent falls. Believe me, we're working on preventing falls. But we're missing the bigger opportunity when it comes to purpose. So many of the innovations to make aging better are just Big Brother. What did we see in the last session in terms of the survey of what people do not want their kids to know every time they open the refrigerator and every time they go in to use the toilet. That's not what people want after a long life and looking for the next chapter. So again, we have a tremendous opportunity there. The way I see it, the problem is that we've been more in the cocoon frame, right? We've been complicit in the denial of aging. We're looking for this fantasy that some aliens will come down and enrich our water, and if you live in our senior living, we have the best water, and you'll live well, and everything's going to be great, and all good, right? You won't grow old, and if you do, you will safely, and everything will be okay, and your kids don't have to worry. But what we should be aiming for is a different type of picture. I think of On Golden Pond, a great film about aging. Maybe I'm a little biased because somebody who had a critical role with this film lives with us at Motion Picture Television Fund. But I saw a screening of this at MPTF on our campus, and I was so moved. I mean, I was really moved to tears just to see this different depiction of aging. And what I thought was so special about it is that here are some older people, particularly an older man, confronting their own mortality, trying to resolve fractured relationships. There's a great depiction of mentoring, intergenerational mentoring, where there's an older man who's taking a sort of a young kid with attitude under his wing, and he's really making this kid better, and at the same time, he's becoming a better man and exploring new territory for himself. So that's what we should be thinking about, is the On Golden Pond frame. Now, again, I just want to, for a good little joke here for anybody who's a fan, I had Sunset Boulevard, Modern Times, On Golden Pond. I got to throw in Steve Martin's The Jerk within the canon of great American film. But Steve Martin, he had a special purpose. So that's the real thing. I got one laugh there about special purpose. So, the other reason I threw this image up, a couple things. First of all, if you think back to The Jerk, it has to do with design, and he prospers by inventing this glasses handle thing. But it's a rags to riches to rags story. So that's where I wanted to take this, is you have to think, okay, purpose is going to become a buzzword. It is. Look, I'm here talking about it. Everybody's going to start talking about it. It's going to become a buzzword. But let's keep it real. Let's really figure out a way to make what matters matter in a sustainable, lasting, meaningful way. So that's our opportunity. And now, when you think about this, we talked about the tremendous opportunity involved with the elder boom. We talked about the critical nature of incorporating purpose into all of our design and the way this can help us design a better age. But of course now, with any good writing, it's always better to show than to tell. So it's with my great pleasure and honor that I'll invite up Barbara Beskind, who is somebody who is doing this every day. She is designing a better age. She is designing products and services that can enable people and help people live with purpose. And in so doing, she is an example of this and gives us a picture of what's possible when we take this approach. So Barbara, if you could come up and we'll have a nice conversation and then we'll take some questions from the audience. You know, as Barbara's coming up, I'll tell you, she's written a book about her life, and I was taking a look at it last night. It's fascinating. Anybody who can talk about growing up in the Roosevelt era, right there in Hyde Park area, and you know, rubbing shoulders with the Roosevelts. I mean, just the pictures alone is a fascinating book. And just so you know, anything that you're going to buy on Amazon would be under Barbara Knickerbocker, as in the New York Knickerbockers. Barbara Knickerbocker, that is her name, and that's what she publishes under. So if you see a Barbara Beskind book on Amazon, don't do it. It's a scam. And we know we don't like scams, right? So, okay, Barbara, thank you so much.
It's my privilege.
So let's begin with the beginning. Tell us the story. I mean, you got a lot of attention for good reason when you sought a new opportunity. You took on a new challenge. Tell us what happened.
Well, in January of 2013, I saw David Kelly, the founder of IDEO, on 60 Minutes. And I saw that he embraced having a diverse team membership so that people from every walk of life and every background experience, in addition to his very well-trained mechanical engineers, designers, product engineers, I mean, they have everything, that they welcomed other opinions, other background experiences. So I thought, oh, that's for me. So in June of that year, I had to delay because of some personal reasons, but in June of that year, I wrote this letter. It took me about 6 weeks to polish it, and I typed it. I could still see it that time. And then I sent it by snail mail, and I think that got their attention.
So you sent this letter to IDEO, and how old are you, by the way?
Well, at that time, I was only 89. Now I'm 92.
And working at IDEO.
Every week.
Is that the common? Tell us a little bit. Maybe some people here don't know about what is IDEO.
Well, IDEO is a go-to, very high-end professional design engineering firm. We're a global firm. We have 20 locations in 8 countries. And the important thing about IDEO is that they embrace the fact that outside ideas and everybody's ideas count. And when they come to IDEO with special problems that need to be solved quickly, we bring in people from all over the world who are specialists, in, whether it's Ebola or what's the new one? Zika, or whether it's a problem for advertising or for mechanics or designs or product designs. That's the go-to firm. And I'm very proud to be to have been accepted.
A lot of nonagenarians walking around IDEO?
Everybody is 6 decades younger than I am. And I go to work 1 day a week on Thursdays. I sometimes go to the office in San Francisco if I'm doing media work. If I go to Palo Alto, I'm more involved with engineers down there and designers. I go to work. My identity, and we're talking about having a purpose, but I feel that everyone has to have and maintain some specific identity. It'll change over the years, but as you age, you have to have a clear identity. And my identity is, oh, she's the one who goes to work. She's the one who takes the train. It's a positive identity, and I'm proud of it.
So with regard to identity and changing identity through the years, had you always wanted to, I mean, here you are at the pinnacle of design thinking, design firm. Had you always wanted to be a designer? Or?
Yes. At the age of 8, I designed my first toy. It was a rocking horse, which wasn't very successful, made out of 2 old tires. And I learned a lot about gravity because I fell off so many times. And by the age of 10, I announced I was going to be an inventor. I went to high school, and my vocational counselor said, but they don't take girls in engineering schools. You can't go to school to be an inventor. Well, I went into home economics thinking maybe they needed new can openers. Well, they didn't need me, and they didn't need can openers, but having majored in applied art and design in home economics at Syracuse University, it gave me a wonderful springboard to be accepted for the Army War Emergency course to train occupational therapists, which was my next goal. And I spent 20 years in the Army, retired as a major in 1966, and have had a fabulous career as an occupational therapist for 44 years.
So I want to come back to occupational therapy because it seems to me that's very much informed your thinking, that discipline and background. But have you had any other careers? I mean,
Oh, yes. I've retired 5 times, but it never worked. Only one pays.
Any other careers coming up? You thinking?
Well, yes, I plan to move.
Ah.
Moving is always an adventure. You know, if you've been in the Army 20 years, you're used to moving. It's just another chapter in your life, and my next chapter will be in Pasadena. I moved here from New Hampshire to be with my family, who then lived in Foster City on the peninsula, and I had never realized what we're now working in Silicon Valley would mean to me, and I regretfully have to leave it to go to Pasadena. But that'll be another chapter in my life, and I will continue working down there, and I will be doing work as a consultant for design opportunities down there.
So I want to come back to this challenge, this next chapter of the move, talk about your background as an occupational therapist. But let's back up. Please tell us a little bit more about the culture at IDEO and what you've learned from that.
David Kelly sets the tone. He wants us to be adventuresome, take risks, learn from our mistakes, think out of the box. Nothing is impossible. Everybody's idea has value. Everybody at the table has equal power. It's the most exhilarating, egalitarian experience I have ever had. And if I had had that experience before becoming an Army officer, I would have been a much better officer. I think I may have been a fairly good one. I tried certainly in my profession to be, but I also tried to be a good leader. But if I'd had the IDEO background beforehand, I would have been a much better officer. It's the leadership that counts. It's the permission to make mistakes, to learn from your mistakes, to share. And one of the things that they emphasize is to help others succeed. And that's such an empowering experience and such an exhilarating opportunity.
So taking risks, helping others succeed, it sounds like you're describing the typical senior living, right?
Oh, yeah. Well,
empowering others.
You would like to think so. Actually, let me say there's a reservoir of goodwill among seniors. And I see it every day in my community. We have 147 units. Many of them, only 22 are in assisted living. And I see many opportunities that people engage in, and I certainly take every opportunity myself to help other people where they need help. If somebody can't find their way to the dining room or find their way back to their apartment, somebody is there to help them. I feel that if I can go to bed at night and think that I have had some impact in making another person's life either safer, more independent, or more enjoyable, I feel like $1 million.
So that's exactly what we're talking about. So you feel that, what is this? Talk a little bit more about this, what it is to have a sense of purpose and how it really kind of plays it's for someone of your age, or how it should.
Well, not everybody will feel that way. But I think that the more opportunities we have to provide chances for seniors to be respected for what they bring to the table, I think the more we can change the culture from an, oh me, I didn't think the golden years were going to be like this, they rusted. And we're our own worst enemies. And I think we need to change the culture completely in order to give empowerment to the seniors. And I believe that they should have an exchange so that seniors can list the qualities and the opportunities, the experiences they have had, so that they can be matched with opportunities that businesses or manufacturers or designers or engineers are working on certain problems, and they would relish the experience that a senior might bring to them, either as a volunteer or as a paid worker, such as I am.
And so what kind of things are you thinking about now? What kind of problems are you solving? What are some of the projects you're working on?
Well, for 2 years I've been working on a project. I've been trying to improve the quality of a walker. The walkers we have are abominable. And they only incentivize people to lean and to lose their balance. And everybody, if you have a horizontal handle, you're going to lean on it. And these walkers were designed for rehabilitation and for weight bearing. And when I fell backwards off a slippery, icy curb in New Hampshire and broke my pelvis in 2 places, I was in a skilled nursing home for 3 months, and I was expected to use one of the traditional walkers because I was only 25% weight bearing. But if you don't get off a walker as soon as possible, you may very easily lose your automatic opposite arm-leg walking gait pattern. And once you lose it, and I've tried to train others who have lost their automatic gait pattern, and I can't retrain it.
See that, and that seems to be a consistent theme in your designs. So, if, Atul Gawande's book, Being Mortal, does a great job of outlining this tension in terms of the care of older people and senior living between safety and autonomy. And you're solving problems that are related to safety. I mean, ostensibly, a better walker, a better supportive assistive device would help prevent falls. But you're not just trying to keep safe. You're actually trying to enable people.
Yeah, right, to empower people to take responsibility for themselves. I think we allow people to take responsibility for us. If we allow people to infantilize us, it's our own fault in many cases, not always. But to go back to what I was inventing, I have designed a walker, I call it a trekker, that allows for vertical handles. You can't lean on them, you have to hold them, and it allows for automatic, the normal gait pattern so you can preserve it. And the reason that's so important is because you want to maintain the proprioceptive input for all the weight-bearing joints and muscles, all the somatic sensory input, and particularly the side muscles and the hip, called the gluteus medius and minimus. And if you don't maintain the strength in that, you will start walking and waddling, and you'll have a Trendelenburg left or right or bilateral, and you'll waddle down. You'll go side to side rather than forward.
So
That's
this sounds
concern.
like, again, this enable approach sounds like your OT background kind of peeking through.
Balance has been the key from the time I designed the rocking horse.
But as an occupational therapist, I mean, is it about sort of doing
Balance.
for people?
No,
or
you
is it
enable
about
them to do for themselves.
Yeah. So do you feel like, how do you feel about seniors? Are they a drain or a resource?
I think that seniors are the most untapped resource that your community has. And I think that industry would be served well to tap them, but you have to get the seniors to be willing to do it. And I've tried. I've tried to mobilize and motivate people to do more, to get out of the residence, to get out into the community, to volunteer at the library, to read books to children, to mentor children, to go to the pet center and be a caregiver for pets. Just do anything. Get out of the place. You have to maintain a community perspective. If your perspective is limited to your four walls, that's exactly what you'll have.
Yeah. And now with your perspective, say I see you use some of your own inventions and whatnot. So you, I guess, low vision, you're having low vision, and some of your balance and your history of a fall very much inform your needs in terms of going through life. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of how you have overcome some of these challenges?
Well, my ski poles. And let me tell you why ski poles are so important, not only for the obvious reasons, but I can walk down the sidewalk and somebody will come up and say to me, "Oh, headed for the slopes." I said, "Yes, I just am looking for snow." Now, if I didn't have ski poles and I had a walker and I was leaning down and looking like an old lady, they wouldn't feel comfortable engaging me. But if I have a vertical balance and an upright stature, and I'm walking and I look as if I'm engaged in life, they feel very comfortable engaging me. And so I say, "Yes, just looking for snow." But this is the healthiest way of maintaining balance. And of course, for me, with loss of vision, I've been legally blind in both eyes now for over 2 years. It's almost 4 years for one eye. And so I have to maintain good balance, and this is my best protection. I have tripped 3 times. I have never fallen on the sidewalk as long as I have my sticks. I only use them when I go out the front door.
So you talked about staying engaged. How do you feel about retirement? How do you view retirement?
Which one?
Exactly.
I'll never retire.
Never retire?
At my 92nd birthday in February, somebody said, "Well, what are your plans?" I said, "Well, I probably will plan to work another couple of years, and then I'll reassess and decide how much longer I'll work. But I'll never be without work."
Yeah, you said to me that you need to focus on the future. People who have plans live to fulfill them. So do you want to say anything else about that?
I feel that my career has had so many great opportunities, both as an occupational therapist, as a writer, as an artist, as an art historian about Russian avant-garde art, which I lectured on for senior lectures. But my experience at IDEO, with all the layers of the cake, my experience at IDEO has really been the frosting. This chapter of my life has, without doubt, been the most enriching experience of working with young engineers, young designers, people with energy, people from all over the world. It's been such an illuminating and valued experience, and I think others could have perhaps not a similar one, but one of their own making that would give them such feeling of purpose. And you're saying, I feel it's a feeling of identity.
Yeah. I mean, so that brings us full circle. Here we are at a senior living innovation forum. And I'm just struck by the contrast by what you're describing as your experience with IDEO and your experience. You live in senior living, right? So, I mean, tell us a little bit about your experience.
Well, there's some very fine people there. Some people who would have been great conversationalists 15 years ago. It's hard to find people who have a depth of interest and have a continuity and a continuum of conversation that you can develop. So unless I can go to work every week and be renewed, it would be quite dismal for me. I have to be out. I have to be alive. I think more people could do more for themselves. That's about what.
Now you're moving to Pasadena.
I am.
And so you're opening a new chapter.
Yes.
And but you're going to live in go the senior living route again. Why not, get your own apartment or what?
We looked at that. We looked very seriously at getting a senior apartment, but the problem is without seeing. And first of all, I have a kitchen because it comes with a house. I never go into the kitchen except to use it as a place for my tools and to work, to develop my inventions. So I would have to have someone cook my meals. And if we went to an agency, as my stepson said, we'd have a different person cooking your meal every night. Well, by the time I paid somebody $4 or 4 hours a day to come and help me with shopping, with cooking, with reading to me, if I needed somebody to read my mail, we'd be paying the same, and I would have no social environment or collegiality. That's why.
So you want the social connection, you want the collegiality. So any burning things as you've been sitting through this conference and thinking about, hearing what everybody's talking about, senior living, innovation, do you have any kind of words of wisdom or things that have...
Well, I've been listening very carefully, and there's one word I've never heard, and I don't know why. I think we're very much on target with information technology. I embrace it. It doesn't always help me because I can't see it. But the one word I have not heard, and I don't know where they are, and that's architects. We have not seen an architect here. We've seen builders. I want to see good design. I have designed physical layouts. I have designed independent living facilities where there'd be a buddy system, where there'd be a central 2 bedrooms, one on each side with their own private bath. And I would recommend a buddy system where somebody like myself with low vision could be supportive to somebody over here who either had mobility problems, maybe cognitive issues, or hearing problems. And I could supplement for them and they could supplement for me by reading to me if I couldn't read. It's very hard for me to read. I think we could do it. I've designed I've designed an entire co-op of independent living, assisted living, and memory care. And I would like to work with architects. I think they've been remiss. They're out of the loop, and I've been expecting to see them here, and I haven't.
Well, I think you could, hopefully a lot of people will be hiring you. I think you have a lot of great perspective, and I want to take questions from the audience, but first I just want to thank you. You said, to me, this was such a pleasure to speak with somebody who just epitomizes the value of living with purpose. And you said that in helping other people really helps you sleep well at night, gives you a good feeling. You've helped me so much, so I want to thank you. I hope you sleep well tonight, and I've just been a pleasure getting to know you. So let's take some questions from the audience.
Yeah. Yep. Lynn?
Thank you. That was inspiring. I really appreciated it. Barbara, my question for you is, as senior living operators, what can we do to help people find their identity in terms of work? What can we do to help people have the same opportunities that you have? Is that something that has to come from the individual, or is it something we can help and work on?
I think it's both. I think you would, if something like the exchange that I mentioned could be developed, I think you could tap into it. But you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I think you have to, I almost say you have to write off this generation. And you have to start at a younger time. You have to start at the 50, 60-year level to get the attitude and the culture that you will be able to be a contributing member of society no matter how long you live.
So Barbara, first, thank you. Before I talk a little bit about IDEO, I'm over here. So 7 years ago, you and I chatted briefly here.
Right in front.
Look straight down.
Yeah.
So 7 years ago, I actually went to IDEO and asked them the simple question, why is it that 30 years into this, the brand for technology for elder care is still I've fallen and I can't get up? And what led down the path on that interaction and ideation sessions ended up actually founding our company. So I'm always grateful to Gretchen, who I know is your boss,
yes.
and IDEO for that. And the question I have is actually for Scott. What can we do to somehow get more geriatricians in the industry? I know you mentioned it up front, and we have, I don't know if you know Dr. Della Penna, he's our chief medical officer, and it's always funny to me, and he shares with me that we're doubling the size of geriatric, population while having the geriatricians. Is it as simple as CMS code changes? Is it policy? Because you guys don't make enough money
Right.
to do your job right. It's amazing that simple, challenge can't be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we could talk for hours about. I'd love to talk to you about it. I mean, it boggles the mind. I mean, it's crazy. So, not only are we not, so one answer would be, let's just produce more geriatricians. Quick, let's make more fellowship spots. Well, guess what? Even the fellowship spots we have are not filling. And they're not going.
You can't spend the standard 4.7 minutes
Right.
with your patient, so therefore it's impossible
Yeah.
in the system for you to make a living.
The prospect when I finished my residency was, hey, how'd you like to do a fellowship? You're going to make less money. By the way, I'm going to send you all sorts of ageist messages about how, that would be so awful and depressing. Why would you want to do that? Oh, and by the way, did I mention you're going to spend another year or two of training and make less money? So obviously this is a problem we have to solve. I'm not as worried about it in the long run in that I think that is a clear vestige of the fee-for-service world. If geriatricians can prove their value in a value-based world, if we are good, which I know we are, at population health and reducing costs, I always joke with people at the American Geriatric Society, we're going to be the old guys there complaining about all the kids in it just for the money. So I think it'll turn around, but obviously the economic incentives have to change. I think that you need to get geriatric education early in the curriculum because and everywhere, early, often, everywhere, because there's just so much ageism in the hidden curriculum. And I think, obviously, we need to think very carefully about the utilization of geriatricians as a scarce resource and think about everybody in, not just in medicine, but in the whole healthcare workforce, having some fundamental geriatric training and expertise. But I think when you think about geriatricians as a scarce resource, maybe having them in clinic, seeing consults, 15 minutes at a time, is not always the best way. And senior living and populations and communities is a great place for geriatricians to have a big impact.
Back to the first question. I had a shoulder replacement surgery a year and a half ago, and because of that was replaced in a skilled care facility, and it was actually the most depressing part of my life. And I give Barbara your inspiration. And what actually depressed me the most is I want to say the great majority who I was forced to eat lunch with every day had given up on life. Is that a solvable problem, or is that a within problem that you basically bring the facility and the facility cannot change it? I almost think it's not solvable.
You want to take a stab at that? I have feelings on that, but do you want to?
I see people making an effort to engage those who have cognitive deficits, and I live with many of them.
In this case, it was more physical than
Yeah.
cognitive. So like the physical disability had forced them to give up.
Okay, I spent 3 months in a skilled nursing home. I know exactly what you're talking about. You'll never know what it's like unless you've lived there. And I recommend, this is an aside, I'm going to make an aside,
Yeah.
but I think that everybody from the CEOs down to the kitchen help should spend, as a condition of their employment, should spend 48 hours once a year as a resident or a patient in whatever level of care they are providing. You only know what it's like if you live there.
Yeah.
And I think you should take the...
Barbara and I, we had a little pact. We talked about her experience after her pelvic fracture, and we said, okay, we're going to keep it kind of globally senior living. We're not going to go to the post-acute SNF space because that's a whole nother conversation. I mean, talk about, and what I think the real key there Of course it's about what we're talking about today, the living with a sense of purpose. But the beautiful part of what I've learned in talking to Barbara as an occupational therapist is thinking about that enabling component. And last year Bill Thomas was here talking about how hospitals are such dangerous places for older people. We really need to look at that post-acute SNF period and think about how are we enabling people. Having people laying in bed, disempowered, disengaged is not a good path to recovery. Fortunately, again, in a value-based world, you would think that the incentives might drive some of this. But that I know, look, I'm here as an outsider. I know how hard, I know the margins are so narrow. I know it's a hard business. So these are not, simple solutions. But hopefully things could start to go in that direction when we recognize what's better for people is better for the bottom line. And clearly your experience and Barbara's experience is not what we need.
One simple follow-on question. I noticed when I Googled Amazon, you've written many books. Which book in there is maybe inspirational to us that we can carry forward?
Are you talking?
Barbara?
Yes.
Which book is inspirational?
Yeah, I mean, I see there's several in here, including painting books, unless there's another Barbara.
No, there's only one.
4 books, right?
4 books, yes. The first book was a textbook, and that's obsolete now. I mean, it's out of print. It's a rare book. That was in 1980. It was an occupational therapy clinical text on learning disorders, which I was a specialist in. And I started the first freestanding occupational therapy clinic in Princeton, in the United States. It was in Princeton, New Jersey, where I was then living with my then husband. At the time, I've written 4 books. Powder Keg is the most comprehensive in terms of biography, but also my family history, the Knickerbocker family history coming from Holland, but more importantly, my mother's family history starting in the 1500s in what is now Belgium, in the Walloon area. And that history I'm very proud of. I did a lot of research on that. It took me 10 years to research that book. But if you're interested in poetry and art, I have a lot of poetry that has to do with history, has to do with personal experience. It goes through a divorce, and it comes out at the other end of the tunnel in a rather positive way. Or I wouldn't have been in Silicon Valley, living and enjoying my work at IDEO if I was still married. But I think that would be up to the person. If you like poetry and you like art, then the second one, Touches of Life in Time and Space, would be for you. The third book is Flax to Freedom, the third of this series, Flax to Freedom. And that has to do, it's a fictional story based on true history of an ancestor who was a Huguenot and who was jailed for being a Huguenot, and how he escaped from jail. And he was a fugitive and came to America.
And those are all great. But of course, now that Barbara's moving down to Southern California, if I could just get in her ear a little bit, maybe our book. We'll write a book, and that'll be the one to go to. There you go. Yeah.
Okay. I endorse that.
So, last question.
Barbara, I love how you describe the buddy system, and I see that a lot. That naturally happens. But if you could design the perfect caregiver, and you maybe want to answer this personally, or if it's too personal, maybe what you feel most people want in their personal connection with their caregiver, male, female, what does that mean for you?
That's an important question, because there is an unspoken contract, social contract, between the recipient and the caregiver, and also the family. If you're paying for services, the family expects the caregiver to serve. That disempowers the recipient. She is being cared for because she can't do. I would like the ideal caregiver to be trained enough to be sensitive, to empower me, to enable me to do everything I can for myself, with her observation to see where she needs to come in and help me. But when she infantilizes me, I'm going to go downhill. But here's the family paying the caregiver to serve my needs, and unless they engage in the contract, it's a social contract, a three-way contract, and unless everybody's on board, it's not going to happen. But it's not the caretaker's fault. We have wonderful caretakers, some of whom are not, and some who arrive here from the Philippines only because it's their route here. And they don't learn the language. It's very hard to engage people from a foreign language if you're in if you're in a very serious condition, such as a friend of mine who has caregivers, but they can't always understand what she needs.
I mean, that's a great takeaway I took from meeting with you, Barbara, is that we really need to change the fundamental social contract in terms of caregiving and in terms of senior living. I mean, the contract of we'll take care of you, we'll keep you safe is really missing the mark in terms of empowering and enabling.
What are your expectations?
Yeah. So thank you so much, and thank you all for sticking around to the bitter end. Hopefully we made it worthwhile, and thank you for including us in your meeting.